Welcome to Unity of Charlotte on this, I'm going to call it a brisk, is that the right word? A brisk Sunday morning. A little bit chilly, but welcome to our service. If you are here in the sanctuary, if you're watching this on Zoom in the comfort of your warm living room, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, welcome, welcome, welcome. And let's go ahead and move into our mission statement. Whoa, that jumped ahead, didn't it? There we go, our mission statement. So please join me. Unity of Charlotte is the place where we nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. Simply put, we are here to love, grow, and serve. Love, grow, and serve, absolutely. Is there anyone who was here for the first time? Just gently raise your hand, just bravely raise your hand. Thank you very much as we welcome you here. If you haven't gotten one already, we do have a packet. You've got one, absolutely, fantastic, great. So if you would, you could also visit with us after the service in the entryway. We have coffee and snacks, and that'll give us a chance to say hello. And for you to ask us any questions, if you have any questions for us specifically here at Unity of Charlotte or the general Unity movement itself as well. So welcome, welcome. We appreciate you being here. Okay, let us go ahead and I guess I want everyone to also know that we have a newsletter out there that gives us all the information that we have on a regular basis throughout the week. So if you're not getting that newsletter, sign up for that because it gives you specifics on times and days. Everything that we talk about is on the bulletin board out there. In fact, a little secret, there are some, I'm going to call them Easter eggs out there that we never talk about in the service that will show up on the bulletin board. So always check the bulletin board for things that are going on in our community, as well as our website. Do I even mention our new website? We have been working, the website team has been working very diligently for the past few months on our new website. It will be released hopefully next week. So on the edge of our chairs on that one, on the edge of our seats, and we will look forward to that new website coming out very soon. Okay, let's take a moment in prayer. I encourage you to relax, take a breath, as we encourage you to move from the head, the busyness of the morning, and from our head, those thoughts, down into our heart space, that feeling nature, that knowing of our spirituality, moving into that heart, and knowing that we are one. We are one with the universe. We are one with each other. We are one with the creative power. And we're so grateful for that knowledge. We bless each and every one within this congregation. We open their minds, open their ears to hear the message that is to be given today, to hear the beautiful music that will be played, and to celebrate with us. And with that we say, amen. Please join me in our prayer of oneness. There is one presence and one power in my life and universe, God, the good omnipotence. We claim and affirm this presence in our lives as love. At this time, if you have a loved one who is in need of prayer, a friend, a loved one, a relative, this is a chance to actually speak their name out. To speak their name out loud as we hold them in prayer together within this sacred space. So, speak their name out loud now. Hold these names in our heart, knowing that whatever is weighing in their lives, all will be well. Amen. Know that we also have a prayer team. On our website is a form you can fill out, and that will reach our prayer team lead as she organizes that, and it is prayed for, as well as the prayer slips, the prayer requests that you fill out here and put in this box. Those are prayed over here locally for 30 days. We have a prayer team that does that. And then those are sent to Silent Unity, Kansas City, and prayed for over another 30 days together. So if you are in need of prayer, know that we can do that locally and worldwide as well. And I do want to let you know of Silent Unity. Silent Unity is an app on your phone that you can access prayer support. You can also call a phone number, 1-800-NOW-PRAY, and you can reach somebody there as well that will pray with you if you need that. I would like to invite up Fred and Margarita at this time. Come on up as we read our daily word, both in Spanish and in English.
Sunday, January 21st, energetic. I mean it. The limitless energy of spirit flows through me and you. I smile as I watch children at play. Their boundless energy seems so natural, so effortless. When I want to reclaim this same zeal and enthusiasm for myself, I remember these divine gifts are already within me.
La energía ilimitada del Espíritu fluye a través de mí. Sonrío al ver a los niños jugar. Su energía ilimitada parece tan natural, tan sin esfuerzo. Cuando quiero recuperar este mismo fervor y entusiasmo, recuerdo que estos dones divinos ya están en mí.
Centered in this awareness, I feel renewed vitality as I take care of my family, move through my workday, enjoy time with dear ones, or volunteer in my community. I engage it all with enthusiasm and feel my energy building.
Centrado en esta conciencia, siento una vitalidad renovada. Mi energía aumenta cuando participo con entusiasmo en el cuidado de mi familia, el trabajo, disfruto del tiempo con mis seres queridos o me ofrezco como voluntaria en mi comunidad. Si mi entusiasmo decae, no me desespero. En lugar de eso, hago una pausa para sentir la energía vivificante del Espíritu Santo, la vida divina y la fuerza que fluye a través de mí.
I feel my enthusiasm faltering. I don't despair. Instead, I pause for a moment to feel the quickening energy of spirit, the divine life and strength that are flowing through me. As I am vitalized, the world feels new. I shimmer with energy and go about doing all that I feel called to do. May you be made strong with all the strength that comes from His glorious power. Colossians 1:11.
Revitalizo, el mundo me parece nuevo. Brillo de energía y hago todo lo que deseo hacer. Todo esto, fortalecidos con todo poder, conforme al dominio de su gloria. Colosenses 1:11.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing? New beginnings. We're going to continue on with that theme. Reverend Jim started us off last Sunday talking about new beginnings. And he referenced the incredible book called Finding Yourself in Transition by Robert Brummett. We did this beginning of last year too. I'm going to loosely reference that. Some of these ideas are from that book. I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. And where they find themselves. The promised land? Did they? Where the wilderness or desert, depending on which scripture you read. We're going to reference it as desert, but it's also known as wilderness. And Reverend Jim talked about that a bit because they wandered around for 40 years, and he talked about the idea of 40 symbolically meaning the time it takes to reach completion, the time it takes to prepare yourself. So building on that story, because from a metaphysical perspective, which is really how we bring this story home to us, what does it mean to us in our own lives? Being in Egypt, being imprisoned, is a state of consciousness for us. And when we're not in direct communication with our Creator, with our source, when we're not living in the flow of knowing ourselves as eternal spiritual beings expressing in human form, when we're living from a belief in limitation, in lack, in separation, then we're living in a state of imprisonment of our own making. So new beginnings is always about finding some form of liberation, regardless of how that new beginning looks for you. And there's all kinds of new beginnings. But when we make that new beginning, how often is it that we're boom, there it is. The very thing we're making a new beginning to become or to manifest in our lives, is it usually there immediately? Not usually. Well, not in my life. Usually there's a journey. There's a journey to bringing this about, whether this is manifesting something physically like a new home, or whether it is shifting our way of being and dropping off old beliefs, old ideas, old habits that aren't serving us. The desert that is referenced in Exodus, I was reading some Bible commentary, and there was a line in there that really struck me, because it said the desert, which Robert Brummett in his book Transitions calls it the void. I really like that word, because that's what a desert feels like. Or being lost in a wilderness, you're lost, you're in a void of what you have known in the past. This particular commentator said, it's a controlling metaphor for a barren in-between place of trial. He said it was meant to serve as a kind of retreat center, but became a place of faithlessness or forgetfulness. And indeed, when we're on this journey, these are the obstacles we hit, is forgetting who our source is, forgetting where we're headed. And what happens when we do that is we end up kicking back into old habits, don't we? Right back into Egypt. Now, this happened for the Israelites, because as you might remember, when Moses went up into the mount and they were left on their own, they got afraid. Their leader wasn't there. Nothing was happening. They weren't moving forward because they had to wait for him to come back. And in that period of waiting, in their fear, what did they do? Does anyone know? They resorted back to idols. Why? It's what they knew. And in that moment of fear, they just needed something. So I don't think any one of us could not understand how that feels. So we're going to look at this journey in the desert a bit. And I'm going to talk about two things that will help us through this journey in the desert. One is to make space. Make a space. And we're going to talk about what that means. And the second thing is find a pace. And we'll talk more about what that is. One thing I did want to mention is I was at a training, end-of-life training that Atrium Health put on. It was for faith leaders. And I was with my friend, Rabbi Tracy, who you are all going to get to meet on February 4th.
And she's going to have a wonderful program to present to you. And Shira, who some of you may know because she's been coming here, is going to do music with her. So it's going to be a very fun and engaging service. I hope you'll be there February 4th. And she was really excited that we were talking about the Moses story because, of course, this is the very foundation of Judaism. And so she'll be able to offer you some other insights. So just a little plug for February 4th. Come, it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's look at what it means to make space and find a pace. Behind. Okay. Make a space. What does that mean? Charles Fillmore, who's the co-founder of Unity along with Myrtle Fillmore, wrote, "We must learn to let go, to give up, to make room for the things we have prayed for and desired." We must learn to let go, to give up, and make room for. Now, let's dive into that a little deeper. The first analogy that came to my mind is the idea of, say you come home, you're looking around your house, and you're noticing all your furniture is falling apart. It's gotten old, it's kind of decrepit, it's not really supporting you anymore, you don't like the look anymore, it doesn't really express who you are anymore. So you want a new beginning. You want to bring some new furniture in. What's the first thing you have to do? Really simple, right? I love this now because, like, well, of course, I have to move the old furniture out before I can bring new furniture in. Well, your thoughts are like objects in your mind. And your thoughts are creating who and what you are as you're experiencing life. So do they still support you? Are your thoughts and your beliefs, or have they just become an old habit that you've been living in that isn't really bringing you joy, is not bringing you liberation? Well, they're like old furniture. It's time to move them out so you can make space for what will serve you. I want to try something right now about a practice of how you can experience making space. And we're going to do a longer version of this in the meditation, but I'm going to try this as a little experiment. I hope you'll just flow with me here for a moment. If it helps to close your eyes, please do so, but you don't have to. And I'm just going to ask you to put your attention on the space you're occupying. The space that is your body. Just put your attention on it. And then find your way of expanding that space. Okay. Coming back into the room, you may open your eyes and just reflect on a moment of how it felt. What did you do in order to feel a sense of expanding your space? Breathe, breathe. It's always a good starting point. How did it feel when you expanded your space? Did it feel any different? Warm? Grounded? Outside of yourself? So there was more to it than just you. Okay, wonderful. So this is just a touchstone because I want to talk about this as a practice. This is something that I have been doing in my own life recently. And it really kind of goes along with the idea of mindfulness practices. It has a lot of the elements of being mindful. So when we are triggered, when we have a reaction that's coming from a place of fear, doubt, mistrust, guilt, and anything that takes us out of a place of peace and flow. And when we're in the desert, aren't we going to hit those moments? We just left behind everything that we knew. Maybe not it's everything, because there's all different kinds of new beginnings. There's new beginnings that have very long arcs in and out of the desert. Getting married, losing a loved one, moving across the country. These are big life transitions that are new beginnings that have a long arc of finding yourself completely there. Because there's a lot of clearing out that we go through to do that. Now, we can both relate to that one. And there are other shorter ones that we go through every day. I found myself in the desert several times this week, right? I found myself in the desert several times. Why? Because I found myself standing there where what I thought was so was not so. And I was in that void. There's the void. It's uncomfortable. It can feel frustrating. And yet, right there is where the opportunity is for transformation to happen. It's the place where we grow. Because we have an opportunity to include more of something that we maybe weren't including before. So let's talk about this idea. First of all, the practice is as simple as a practice could be. You relax, you pause, recognize, you hit a desert moment is what I'm calling them right now. I pause, I breathe, I relax, and I open. And that's it. We actually don't want to think about it too much. One thing about making space in this practice is that when we are expanding our focus, we're not pushing anything out. This is really key to this practice. We're expanding to include everything in. Does that make sense? Because I can focus on space and it pushes out all the things that are making me uncomfortable, right? That's not what we're really doing here. To make space is to open up and include everything exactly as it is, with no judgment, with no need to change it, to just let it be what it is, and now it's in your space as it is. But there's something else that happens in there. Because when you open up and allow space, what else are you going to find? Spirit. Where does spirit live? Where does God live? Everywhere. Everywhere. It's all that living, loving, creative presence is never absent. We just don't remember because when we're fearful and we're frustrated or angry, we do this. Our space shuts down. Well, what happens when we shut the space down? We shut out our awareness of spirit. Spirit hasn't gone anywhere. God hasn't gone anywhere. That power, that energy is always present. So what we're really talking about in making space is opening ourselves up to the power and the presence and the activity of spirit within us and within everything else that's in our awareness. That's moving into the promised land. And this can be a daily process, a daily activity. So that's making space. When we're going to come back, we're going to do a practice with that. I want to move on to the idea of finding a pace. Because making space is how, when we find ourselves, we've We've committed to making a new beginning. That's what the burning bowl, we're letting go of something in our lives. We're letting go of the old furniture, the old thoughts, the old habit. Usually it's going to be specific. Then we step into the white stone to open up. What did we do in that ceremony? But made space for the word to come, for that guidance to come, for Spirit to speak to you individually about your own journey through this desert. To say, here's what your power is, here's where you're headed, here's where you're going. Now we're on the journey. And it's like, okay, where do I go? Right? I've lost kind of my reference points, and I'm thinking, okay, and often you've made the movement to get there, and now what? Now what? Making space, first of all, helps you to move to a state of consciousness where you can hear Spirit's guidance, your own inner wisdom. It is within you, always available to you. It will speak to you and guide you. As a matter of fact, going back to the Moses story, the Israelites were given signs. They were given a pillar of wind during the day to follow, to make their way through the desert, and a pillar of fire at night to light their way. So there was always guidance available, but there were periods of time when no pillar appeared, which meant stay where you are. Until you see the pillar, don't move. Now, how many of us in this Western culture like to just sit and wait for the next instruction? Not very many of us. There are some who have much more patience. Patience has not generally been my forte, but it's something I've been working on, and I'm getting better and better at it. But I wanted to speak to that moment, because that moment of stillness is actually so fruitful. It's actually so important to this journey. When it doesn't appear there's activity out here, it means the inner work is happening. Sometimes we'll be aware of that inner work, and sometimes we will not. Sometimes it's going to be really uncomfortable because we don't have control over it. It's something that happens within us to bring forth that which we've called on. We've called this forth in our lives. It helps me to remember that in those moments. So finding pace. How do we, during these times, maintain and sustain a sense of purpose and inspiration through this journey through the desert? The way we give the new beginning roots, the way we give this new beginning stability, is to find a pace. Now let's talk about what I mean by that. Here's Irene Malik. She says, faith is our willingness to take the next step without fear or looking back, and yet have the patience to allow divine order to work through our situation without trying to force the results ourselves. That's kind of a mess. I'm going to say, sometimes I believe you have to take the next step even if you are fearful. So I don't totally agree with without fear. It's lovely if you can do that, and if you can really be conscious, you can. But sometimes in fear, we're still moved to take the next step. Don't let fear stop you from taking that step. If you have been inspired, instructed, and guided to move forward, do that with faith. Faith is what gets us through the fear. But then she says, so this is about action and taking steps, but it's also about patience and allowing the process to work within us and through us. Because there's a divine order to things, and we can't change that. We allow that, but in the allowance comes peace, comes joy, comes confidence, and eventually liberation. To me, it's a little bit about maintaining both movement and stillness, which seem diametrically opposed, but they're really not. Because in stillness, there is a kind of movement, and in movement, there can be a kind of a stillness. And when we are flowing with spirit in direct alignment with who we are as spiritual beings, we feel that, we sense that, and we know it. The definition of pace means to move or develop something at a particular rate or speed. To move or develop at a particular rate or speed. To keep pace with means to move, develop, or progress at the same speed as something else. So I like this because what we're looking to do here when I say find a pace is remember that we're not setting the pace. I don't set the pace for my journey, nor am I going to keep pace with what I think someone else is doing. So who do I want to keep pace, or what do I want to keep pace with? But my own internal spiritual guide. Let spirit set the pace, and then trust it. Trust it. Trust that if you're not hearing guidance to take movement, it's okay to be still. It doesn't mean progress is not happening. When the Israelites were in the desert and there was no pillar of fire and no pillar of wind, they stayed where they were and went about whatever business was to go about until that pillar showed up again, and then they moved. That's our guidance and our wisdom, the light that will come through and say, now it's time to do this. By keeping pace with spirit, what spirit's setting for us, we'll find a certain peace, a certain confidence, and certainly a stronger faith in the progress that we're making and on our journey. So making a space and keeping pace is what will help us get through our own desert journey, whether it be a long arc of a journey or if it be through the week. When we're for a moment, we lose our sense of self, our sense of spirit's guidance, and find ourselves for a momentary time walking through the desert again. But that's okay, we have a practice. Now, some examples I want to give you. One is, I have discovered recently, and it was through doing this practice, by the way, that there's a new cultural norm that seems to be getting more and more widespread, and that is to go into a restaurant and to watch videos without earpieces. And that's okay, to just play whatever little TV show or video, and because it's not just like one or two people. I'm seeing this over and over again, like whole groups, like Reverend Jim and I, we have our favorite places because we like, when we go to lunch, we like quiet, right? We're probably not the norm. So we find this nice quiet restaurant. We really love it. So we go there often for lunch. Well, recently it is now during lunchtime, large groups of workers come in and they all have their own little phones and they all have their own YouTubes going all at the same time, out loud. And so I had a desert moment because I got triggered. I didn't like it. It was disturbing my peace. We came there for quiet. Don't they know that's not courteous? Don't they know that's rude? So, in my supreme rightness of the moment, I do what we tend to do when we're triggered. I look for support of my position, right? So I turn to Reverend Jim and I go, isn't that rude? Fully anticipating he's going to support me in this particular perspective. And he might not. But either way, When we're triggered, we fall back on these old habits of trying to take control, defend ourselves, change the situation somehow to meet our expectations and desires. But it's never going to work because the world is not about me. And nothing I do will ever control everything that's happening out there. Does it mean I can have an impact? I certainly can. What kind of impact do I want to have? In that moment, I was not going to have a very positive impact, right? I was not really going to be bringing the light of God into this situation for where I was standing in the desert. I was falling back on my old idols of control and being right and demanding that the world adjust to me. But then I made space. And when I say I made space, this has been my practice. I'm committed to doing it. I paused and I said, wait a minute, I'm never going to be able to control everything. I can, however, invite everything in. Because there's an emotion attached to these thoughts, right? And that emotion is really what keeps us locked into our habits usually. Thoughts can be changed. Emotions have to be felt. Thoughts can be changed. Our emotions around them have to be felt and released. And you do that by giving it space. So in that moment, I closed my eyes and I felt where I was. And then I just opened my space, my sense of space, to include everybody and everything in that restaurant, just as it was, without judgment, without discrimination, without any ideas at all, but just to experience that space as it was being presented. That allowed my emotion, the power of that emotion and energy of that emotion, to transform. And that was the moment when I realized this is a new norm. I'm now the older generation. I don't know how that happened. And there's new generations coming in every generation, and in our culture, it's all changing. So being on phones and listening to YouTubes, this is happening I don't know, maybe it's just happening to me, but it's kind of becoming a new norm. And so for me to want to make them to change, wouldn't that be rude? Wouldn't they think that was rude? They live in a country where you're allowed to express yourself and be. So it's not about right or wrong here. Let me just say that, because you may have an idea about whether it's right or wrong to be listening to phone calls and YouTubes out loud at restaurants. I certainly did, but I got a new perspective, and that allowed me to relax. Now, I may choose not to go there during lunches, because what I'm seeking for myself is peace and quiet. So I can find a place of peace and quiet, but I don't have to be angry and upset or make anybody wrong about that. This is my journey of not controlling and letting spirit live through me, express as me, to be present even in these uncomfortable moments, and still be light, love, acceptance. Am I there 100%? No, but that's the journey. And I know you're all on your own journeys, not on your own, because you're never on your own. Because God is always present throughout this journey. So we just looked at the whole idea of new beginnings and how new beginnings takes us out of an old way of being. And before we hit that moment where it has come to complete mature fruition in our lives, we take a journey through what we call the desert. And in that desert, we don't know our way because we're trying something new. We're expressing something new. We're allowing something new to come into our lives. It may seem like there are times of activity and times when nothing's happening at all. But we remember it is our inner guidance that will lead us through. And we can find that by making space when we hit those obstacles, including everything in, and knowing that we are at pace with our own inner spiritual wisdom, and that all is well. So would you like to give it a try? Let's do it. Let's do a short meditation. Looks like I've gone a little over. Oh, no, I don't know if that clock is right or not. Sit back. Just get comfortable in your chair. Take a nice deep breath in. A slow exhale out. Do that one more time. A slow, long breath in. A long breath out. And let's begin. As you continue to relax, let your focus first simply be aware of the space you're taking up as your physical form. The chair you're sitting in, the presence of your body. No judgments, no need to change anything, just be aware of that space around you. You might even say, here I am. Here I am. And when you're ready, expand this space, your space, this sense of you, expand it to include everyone in the room. No judgments, no need to change anything. Everyone just as it seems to you. This is your space. It includes everyone here. Include the room, the temperature, the noises, the vibrations, everything that is in this space as a part of your space, just as it is. And sit with that awareness for a moment in the silence. When we become present to everything in the moment as it is, we are literally opening up to the flow of spirit, the presence of spirit, of God in our lives, in our hearts, our minds, our soul, everywhere around us, and expressing through each and every living being. This is the journey we are on. When you're ready, gently bring your focus back to your space where you sit. Feel your body in the chair. Take a moment to feel your breath filling your lungs. Maybe take a moment to feel your own heartbeat. and know you are here, right here, in the presence, energy, and life of God. And so it is. So I leave you with this practice of making space and finding pace. I invite you for the next week at least, maybe even longer if you're willing to, every day take 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, time it, to let everything go and just sit and make space for whatever's happening in your life. A wide open space. And know that is an invitation for spirit to become alive through you and in you. And that's finding the promised land. Namaste.
Now's the time in our service. This is the offertory part of our service, where we know that as we give, so do we receive. And it is through your generous gifts to Unity of Charlotte that we continue to be a light into this community. A light, as Reverend Lisa spoke, that pillar of light. You can think of it that way as well. So we have many different ways that you can give. We have donate buttons on our websites. You can use your phone and text to give a gift. You can use your own bill pay system. QR codes are out in the lobby. You can use PayPal, and that QR code to PayPal is out in the lobby as well. And I am in charge here. Oh, there we go. Please join me in our prosperity. It doesn't work. There we go. Together, joyously I give this gift, knowing the divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Ushers. The light of God surrounds us. We are light. The love of God enfolds us. We are love. The power of God protects us. We are power. The presence of God watches over us. We are presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.